the name Gilgamesh literally means for the elder is now the young man.
Mm.
And what that means is literally what? The elder is now the young man, which means the son is now the father, which means the child is now the parent, which means the new generation will eventually be the old generation. And I think the beauty of the first written story that we found being the Epic of Gilgamesh was the naming of Gilgamesh as he who was once a child is now an adult. Dude, so you know about like Carl Jung, like you know about the shadow self and stuff?
I've read not all the way read his books. I have a lot of books that I buy and I don't really finish. It's one of my issues. I'm trying to get through some of these. I bounce off multiple interesting philosophical texts, and I try my best to read as much as I can that piques my interest, because I think reading is really important. I mean, it's probably what made me who I am today, because as a youth, my mom forced it down me to learn English. I mean, Russian was my first language. Kindergarten, I was struggling in ELL trying to learn English, and I'm still mixing up J's and G's once in a while.
Wow.
And so I had to kind of push myself. Next thing you know, in fourth grade, I'm reading Mark Twain books. So I'm a little more ahead, but history always interested me. So because of me I think I have to give credit to me liking history and ancient cultures and their mythologies and the way civilizations were before, Jesus Christ, or before certain time frames, just how people lived. And I value the past enough to understand that there's patterns, and I try to connect those patterns with the present moment, and then I try to use that to predict the future.
Literally.
So in a sense, a trinity of history in that sense right there. But
that's what I wrote my whole book about, dog.
Yeah. Really? What book?
Well, so in 2018, I wrote a book called Introspective Rationale, The Odyssey of Theodicy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Well, the Odyssey of Theodicy, like the phrasing of that is just a theodicy is any doctrine that tries to prove God's existence.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bible is a theocratic doctrine because of its attempt to prove God's existence, right?
Yeah.
So the Odyssey of Theodicy is just a journey in understanding why all these different religions were trying to prove God's existence.
Yeah.
And you end up realizing...
monotheistic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, after you get to a certain point, because you could even... A lot of cultures try to say the Abrahamic tradition, so Judaism, was the first monotheistic culture, but deep down you had Aten and Akhenaten, right?
Yeah.
So you had
but that's coming from like polytheism, right?
Right, but I'm saying the monotheistic ideas had to were bred out of polytheistic tradition.
Yeah.
So we had multiple gods we believed in through the anthropomorphization of nature.
Yeah.
Us, like the wind, the water, all that.
That's some Hinduism right there.
Literally.
Yeah.
And then you got to a point. That's why Hinduism is one of the oldest cultures.
Sanskrit. Tattoo on my back.
Nice.
Sanskrit mantra.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah. I hum it when I do transcendental meditation.
Nice.
So I try to do that every morning. If I don't do it in the morning, I usually did it the night before, just to kind of reflect on my day and humble myself out a little bit, bring some harmony into my chaotic day. So, and I believe that there's energy, in a sense, what the Hindus were kind of saying, there's energy within all living things. And there's vibrations within all those living things. Like science proves, atoms vibrate, right? So, I mean,
you get down to the string.
Everything vibrates in different frequencies. And in a sense, the chakras that are in us, what the Hindus believe, if we are more self-aware of our energies and bring in, hobbies that are humbling in a sense, like meditation, then I think it really brings more self-enlightenment and awareness to who you are and what you should do, and maybe how you should act in the future, or what decisions you should make. Because it's pretty hard to completely blank your mind like Buddhist monks, because they believe in, the all suffering and nothing really matters to them. But
on the physical level.
Yeah, on the physical level.
My boy Cody, we were talking about how Quang Thic was this, or Thic Quang was this Vietnamese, he was this Vietnamese Buddhist monk who in 1963 literally lit himself on fire to prove that he didn't give a fuck about this material world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say when he literally they had one monk pour gasoline on him.
He didn't feel the pain, did he?
They said, well, technically, if you burn to death after a certain point, the flames and the heat,
it just kills you.
Well, it burns your nerves off so you don't feel it,
Yeah.
right? So after a certain point, you don't feel it.
But he didn't make a move, did he?
He didn't make a move. He didn't make a sound.
That reminds me of Wim Hof, the breathing. Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Wim Hof, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not going to talk shit because English, like you speak multiple languages, so you're Gucci.
Yeah. I just forgot his name. But the guy who, went up the mountains cold in shorts, and he lost his wife, and his meditation is pure breathing, breath work, and
fire yoga,
what he accomplished, swimming underwater, longest record in cold freezing water. And
the scientific studies they did where he was able to decrease his autonomic arousal based off of them literally giving him.
It was like a disease.
They gave him a little bacterial disease.
It was like a bacterial disease, and he did not get the disease.
How about this? On top of that, he literally said, my stuff is so proven, I'll have 5 of my students. Also, I'll let you test 5 of my students, and all 5 of them passed. It might have been like 10, but he had like a handful of his students also endure the test.
See, so things like that, like, if that's possible, what are things we aren't aware of and can't perceive, things like that. When I read about them or watch them and see other people around the world accomplishing these
superhuman feats.
Yeah, superhuman feats through their own methods, and maybe they've learned from some other person that was doing similar methods. It's very interesting because I believe it's all pretty connected, I think a lot of it's connected. And
that's literally what the book was about, bro.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And there's a lot of synchronicities out there to where, if you just catch these patterns and these frequencies, you start to notice that there's something bigger out there. And I don't know what that bigger is, but I'm Orthodox. I was baptized.
Orthodox?
So, yeah.
Eastern Orthodox?
Yeah, I was a little late, but I was baptized when I was 21 or 22. Yeah. And it was interesting. It was quite the ritual kind of aspect.
Eastern Orthodox is another animal, bro.
It was in the 3rd largest Orthodox church in the world in Georgia, in Tbilisi. And I didn't have a male role model. So I think one of the priests or bishops, or he wasn't high up, but he became my godfather. And then my godmother was like my cousin. But just doing that out of respect for tradition, because I do value, I watched your podcast with Anthony the other day, and
nice.
I also value tradition in that aspect. And it doesn't mean that I completely disregard this faith. I still believe in a creator.
Right.
There's got to be someone out there.
It's just the strict adherence to the actual doctrine and the practices of that doctrine may not be as disciplined as ancestors may have had it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for example, getting this Sanskrit tattoo, well, there's some Hindu aspect there, or me meditating like Buddhist monks. So I take a little bit of all to be who I am today. And I still think that, it's really up to what you believe is good moral, judgment, and how you carry yourself in this day and age, and just how to present yourself and talk when you're talking to people. And it's all about being good, right?
Yeah, it's about knowing yourself well enough where being good's it's a natural reaction to how you live your life, because it's not only the best way, but in contrast to the only other way, the satanic way. It's like, why wouldn't you do things for the greater good? Why wouldn't you do things to help and benefit people?
Yeah, and speaking on that topic, there's definitely evil out there.
Oh yeah.
So in a sense, this is kind of like a protector, a protection against that.
It's an
evil.
Emblematic shield.
Yeah,
protecting
an aura.
you.
Let's say it just gives me that aura around me. Like if there's energy and there's auras around us naturally, why wouldn't maybe this blessing of a charm or the cross itself?
Mm-hmm.
What if it thwards off that negative energy that some individuals may have inside them? I don't know. Because I feel like people can get possessed. I know people. I feel like on YouTube when I was watching certain videos, people get possessed, and then the Catholic Church comes in and they do their thing and they expel whatever the spirit is in them, or demon, or
least about, because we could actually get into like conjuring type, right? Like,
well, that's a whole nother level of evil, and
So my thing is, though, ultimately, if we take the first principles route of like people being possessed, like even from the biblical standpoint,
yeah,
it's legit least about them being actually if we had like a detector that could gauge whether or not a demon was actually in their body and they could like change the morphology of their physique and all this shit, like least about that and more about them being literally possessed by satanic ideals.
Yeah.
Ideals that go against, let's just say, all things good and holistic, especially as a human compared to our animalistic primitivisms.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we are like other animals, but what separates us is that ability to have a relationship with God, which is the heightened level of consciousness we maintain with respect to other animals.
Yeah.
So I think it's least about believing whether or not like a motherfucker literally has a demon in their body, but more so that they're literally think of like people in cults and shit, right?
There's evil thought behind their decisions and actions,
which is
different than maybe being completely possessed by a daemon or a jinn in the Middle East is what they call. So it's really interesting to see.
In Sanskrit, do you know what they call them, by the way?
No.
So in Sanskrit, they call you literally have Avestan Sanskrit, which is the Afghani, which is the Zoroastrian, which is the newer form of what Sanskrit was.
Yeah.
Sanskrit is the actual mother language, right? But they're not only grammatically similar in a lot of the words and verbiage that they use, but their term for devil and God. In Sanskrit, you got Deva, and in Avestan, you got Deva. So Deva with an E or Deva with an AE, those two differences, one literally means God, one we should worship, and the other means devil, who we should hate, essentially.
Yeah.
And the history of that is when the Avestan Zoroastrian culture was birthed and came out of the Sanskrit Hindu culture, one thing they did when they left that culture was nearly talk shit on the stuff they didn't agree with, like how they were terming their gods and their devils. So what one culture literally called God via Deva, the other one said, nah, you call your gods Deva, we're going to call our devils Deva.
So you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. You're saying over time, cultures can take certain aspects of other religious texts or mythological texts, and the words change linguistically. And that's kind of what this guy I was watching called Santos Bonaccia, I think, or Bonaccia, he was saying kind of like through time, words change and words have meaning. And that's a great example of how that devil word could have changed and became devil through the concept of Zoroaster.
And where it once was literally it meant the opposite. It literally meant God. It had a positive association with it. But because this new culture, the Zoroastrian culture, was leaving and they were literally trying to separate themselves.
Because they like the sun, right?
It's more so about the monotheism, because we'll go back into the monotheism. Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazdaism, or Mazdayanaism, it believes that there is essentially one God, which is starkly different to what the Hindus believe, because they believe there's multiple gods.
Yeah, and then the Persians took that, right?
That's what, so Zoroastrianism was adopted essentially by the Persian Empire, and what they did was they took the Avestan language, which was the book of Zoroastrianism, is written in an old archaic language called Avestan. The words, the notation, the symbols are nearly identical, kind of like Akkadian and Sumerian.
Yeah.
So like Akkadian and Sumerian, right? You had the Sumerian script, the cuneiform of Sumeria,
first language.
Sumer, the first written language,
known language,
first documented known language, right? You have Sumerian cuneiform writing, which was just like a pictograph, sort of like
verse form of hieroglyphics.
Legit, a very, very basic form of hieroglyphics that was based in the sexagesimal math system, which is a whole other conversation we could have. The number 60, right? Because you're big, like you understand numerology.
Nikola Tesla.
Right, Nikola Tesla, literally. He was Serbian though, right?
I think he was Slavic.
I think he was Serbian. But point is, when you're able to understand where certain words come from, it's least about what the word even means and more about the history surrounding the word, like Deva or Deva or Dava, however it's pronounced, right? The two different. So what you have is the Avestan script was written maybe 300 years after the Sanskrit script has already been established.
Yeah.
But we can tell certain words are directly borrowed and related from that old Sanskrit language, which makes etymologists believe that they both come from a original mother language.
Yes.
And that mother language is more explicitly shared or seen through Sanskrit as the residual remnants of that mother language.
Yeah.
But Avestan not only comes from that mother language, but has still some of those Sanskrit adaptations from it. And when you learn that, you end up realizing, okay, what the fuck does that mean? What it means is you have a word like Deva, which old heads said was the gods. And then you have these new young motherfuckers saying, not only is it not multiple gods, it's one God. And we're going to name him not Deva. We're going to name his opposite, the devil, Deva. And he's going to be his own new God because we need to contrast this new religion with that old religion.
And that's kind of how it all worked its way into the West, towards the West. And then it kind of formed those Abrahamic religions in a sense. And then, of course, Egyptian influence and Greek influence.
It's there throughout the developmental process.
Phoenician influence.
See, you need to read my book, bro. I go in, literally.
I'll read it, yeah. I would love your book.
I go in on the Ugaritic people, right?
Where can I get it?
Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. I got an audio book on Audible, like a British lady narrated it.
I would love to read it.
Legit, man. It's a dense, tough read. Like, it's a dense book.
That's all I read.
Good. Because you'll be able to legit give me insight that most people can't give because they can't get through the first 3 chapters. When you get to chapter 3 is where the history really starts hitting heavy. So you have to follow along with dates and names. But the dates and names are least relevant to the context in which those dates and names are used, because you end up realizing I'll talk about a guy named Sargon the Great, not because he's an important guy to know, but because his story, you end up realizing when I talk about the chapter in Judaism, his story is a direct, near grammatically perfect.
Is that Babylon?
Yeah, Babylon, literally. Near grammatically perfect with the story of Moses. So you have Sargon the Great being passed down by his mother having to get rid of him, putting him in a basket down a river, and all this
similarities.
stuff.
And also in a sense of like names and words. You ever think about Horus and maybe Jesus?
You ever think
being
about
a similarity?
You ever think about where the word czar came from? Caesar.
Yeah.
Because of Caesar.
So yeah, and then there's the dual-headed eagles.
See what I'm saying? Like, and it all comes from an ancient.
It just goes back.
Archaic influence.
It's all goes, and that's why I studied ancient history. I've been really interested in that ever since I was a kid, because I was reading normal history, like pretty far back, and I was always interested in dinosaurs and cavemen. And then I started understanding that we're not actually being taught detailed history of certain things, and I went back even further, like BC, and that's where things got really interesting, because then you see the pyramids, you see Angkor Wat, you see the Incas, you see the Aztecs,
the Indus River people, bro.
You see the Hindus, and then
you start civilization,
even the Chinese. Like, you just start understanding that
whole valley.
Things are way older, and it comes from this older concept. So to kind of understand what influences us today, you kind of have to know what's older.
To know where you're, I said this in the last podcast. To know where you're going, you have to know first where you came from.
Yep.
And to know where you came from requires a certain level of due diligence to actually care about how we got here.
Yeah.
And to know the history about how we got here will better prepare you to what? Not repeat the history that essentially got us here.
Yeah.
Do you know about the Epic of Gilgamesh?
No, but I do know where we are in the new age of the Aquarius.
Nice. Literally, you talk about the precession of the equinox and all that, right?
Yeah.
The name Gilgamesh literally means, for the elder is now the young man. And what that means is literally what? The elder is now the young man, which means the son is now the father, which means the child is now the parent, which means the new generation will eventually be the old generation. And I think the beauty of the first written story that we found, being the Epic of Gilgamesh, was the naming of Gilgamesh as he who was once a child is now an adult.